So we're all up to date as of spring 2023. So let's dive straight in. And I think it's always worth, with periodical payments, just rolling back sometimes. There is a lot that I certainly forget about the sort of orders you can have. Sometimes you have to, what's that terrible corporate expression, shoot the puppy. One of the things that we do a lot is problem solving, isn't it? So sometimes, particularly with that interaction with capital and income, might have a farming case that's capital heavy and income light. And quite a lot of those in parts of the world I used to live in. So sometimes it's really worth sort of going back and just checking through. And if you've got a real problem, thinking about what sort of orders can be made and whether or not we can do something a little bit different that's then going to help to unlock the case. Consider a termination of spousal maintenance at each point and allow an adjustment without undue hardship. So adjusting without undue hardship goes back into the mists of time in the periodical payments cases, and it's still what we look at. You need to adjust without undue hardship. And you also need to look, and the magic words are, the other thing you need to take away from paragraph 46, to transition to independence. A degree of not undue hardship in making the transition to independence is acceptable. You need to transition to independence. Your client, if they're recipient, need to have a plan as to how they're going to make themselves independent. I've given you a case of D&D, much more up-to-date, 2020 case here. Parties were 51 and 49. This was a really short marriage. It's really difficult to know what to do sometimes on a very short marriage. What happened here, and she'd been in rented accommodation. He lived on a houseboat in Kingston. And so what the court did is it did make a PP's order for 24 months, stepped, higher rate for year one, lower rate for year two, encouraged the husband to buy it off if he possibly could, but then only gave her 21% of the assets, despite the fact that the matrimonial home contained most of the assets. It wasn't a 50-50 because they'd only really been together 8 months. She was able to buy, in effect, shared ownership or a houseboat of her own. And so that's how the court dealt with it. So that's a useful one, D&D 2020 for very short marriages.